Hi, this is Derek DeCosta, the author of The Moonlight King. This is a true story about a modern-day slave finding his freedom both physically, emotionally, and spiritually. It is a chronicle story about a privileged young boy that is suddenly enslaved into an unknown prison, and how I found my freedom through many levels and many years and many lessons. This story is to help inspire others find freedom within their own lives, whether it be physically, emotionally, or spiritually. Following are excerpts from radio interviews discussing my philosophy and the principles behind the Moonlight King. I hope that you enjoy these interviews, and for further information or to contact us, please find us at themoonlightking.com or friend us on Facebook at The Moonlight King. I went from a very privileged life in Korea where I was treated like a prince. I was a firstborn son, and I had no sense or idea that this place America existed. And as I wrote in the book, my mother described it as a fun park with ice cream and toys and candy. She didn't want me to be afraid when I went here. I didn't know what adoption was. So the situation that happened was the first generation of Koreans that were adopted in the mid-70s, there was very little screening process for that particular series of adoptions. And as a result, there was a massive amount of abuse with the single-parent adoption homes. Today, it's very, very stringent as a result of us being adopted and reporting these crimes. The story basically encompasses my transformation from seeing the world, with butterflies and dragonflies and sunshine, into this prison of sorts where I was basically beaten and abused every single day, until the point where I started to lose hope. And I discussed in the book talking to the moon, and that was me talking to my mother, because the last thing I saw before leaving Korea was the full moon. And as a child, never being on a plane, I didn't realize what a plane did, take you to the other side of the world. So as far as I was concerned, when we landed and I saw the full moon again, we were still near Korea, near my village. So for several months, maybe more than a year, I continued to talk to the moon as if it would somehow translate what was going on to my mother, who I was sure didn't know what was happening. And so that gave me a sense of comfort in short bursts, and really the only sense of certainty that I had during an extremely uncertain time. And what I was trying to do was I was trying to hang on just in case, for the slim chance that my mother would somehow find me, finally saying, we've been looking for you, we didn't know what happened to you. And so for several years, maybe 4 years to be exact, I still held on to the slimmest of hopes that there had just been a tragic mistake and that I was lost in the files and the paperwork. As you read this book,
my heart, anyone's heart, goes to you, just to get to the next chapter. And as time would go on, you then contemplate suicide at age 11. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think that, as a lot of people would do, at one point I gave up hope. And I think really, for me, my world got smaller and smaller, basically into that house alone. And I basically forgot that, there are people out there that do care, and there are resources that I could have used. But at that age, as you alluded to, Alex, I was very ignorant, being in a new country, not knowing the language, not knowing the customs. That is why I decided not to follow through with the suicide. But as you read in the book, during that part of my life, it was very dark, and the only hope that I had was in my heart, and I've known this since I was 6½. I was meant to have a deeper purpose than the pain that I was suffering. Okay, so this is the key message of the book I want everybody to get, is not about what I suffered through, but knowing that in your heart that God has a purpose for you. A bigger purpose than whatever pain you think you're going through at the time. It's a lesson for you. It was a lesson for me. And so what I learned through that process was that there are good and bad people in the world. And I started with the good, and certainly at the time was with the bad. But if you focus your mind on your one specific intent that you want to create in life, and for me it was to, when I was much younger, I wanted to be a police officer because I wanted to right the wrong. And today I'm not a police officer, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give people a sense of hope, a sense of freedom, knowing that even though they may not be captured physically like I was, most people are enslaved to fears and doubts in their own minds, limiting beliefs that are caused by themselves or the people around them or their parents in the past or bullies or family members. People, I believe, have something that's limiting them, holding them back from being who they really want to be and could be potentially in life, which is really to help each other out. I believe that our message or our purpose on life is to find ourselves first, who we really are, without all the garbage that's on top of it. And we talked about earlier, how most people would have gone to crime or be dead or be in jail. Some people do that, I think. But what I've done in the book, throughout the book, and you'll see that, is that in the absence of my parents, I look for temporary mentors wherever I could find them. Initially, at that point that you're reading, it was an assistant golf pro at the golf course, at a Hansbrook golf course, actually. Gave me a sense of hope and gave me a potential idea that human beings were good in their core. And some neighbors that I met as well helped me with that. So my whole life has been based on seeking, there's a saying, what you seek, you find. And I was certainly seeking good people to give me guidance and mentorship or be a role model for me. And so the other message that I have that's triggered throughout the whole book is, if you can't find the heroes of your life within your own family, you've got to find them other places, whether it's in books, videos, movies, or people within the community. But you can always find that if you really look hard enough. Someone that you can model yourself after, whether it's in their behavior or what they do for a living. In my life right now, I have 5 or 6 mentors at any given time for each compartment of my life. When I escaped from that prison, this woman, lovely woman, her name was Cookie, took me in and allowed me to live at her home and rent a room from her home. She happened to be the mother of a friend of mine in high school.
2 boys, right?
2 boys,
Mm-hmm.
right.
There's a picture of Cookie.
Yeah, right. She's so Cookie's her nickname, obviously.
She's a lot shorter than you.
A little, yeah, probably the only person that I know that's shorter than me. So she was a wonderful person. She took me in, and so that was the first time that I got to experience maternal love in my life, where she really did look after me and treated me the way that a mother should. And so it was a really great moment for me. And those 4 years going through high school, I just couldn't have done it unless Cookie was there beside me to encourage me. And the moment that I woke up and changed my whole life was when I actually did one of those things where I blacked out in Cookie's home. I came home drunk and I passed out on the kitchen floor. And when I woke up that next morning, she came into the kitchen, and she essentially told me that I had to leave, I had to get out, because that was not acceptable behavior. And she was right. And the reason why it was such an important moment for me was not because I'm leaving another home, because I'd done that many times before. It was because I had broken the heart of the only person that cared about me for the 4 years I was with her, and for my whole young adult life, really, that I knew of, with the exception of my mother as a young child. So breaking her heart was far more than I could bear. Beating myself up and abusing myself with alcohol and negative thoughts was one thing, but hurting her was another thing. So that really crystallized what I had to do with my life. And that is actually when I started getting into bodybuilding and fitness. And I became sober for several years, didn't have a drop to drink, and I immersed myself in the fitness and the bodybuilding world, which is why I became a personal trainer. So the key concept of dealing with challenges is looking within yourself instead of changing the things around you. It's our behaviors that we have to focus on.